Okay, so we've done the warrior look into TBC. So let's go into rogues. I said I was going to do a video for each class. So today's rogues. I've got someone who's going to come on to this video as well. So he's a very good rogue. I don't like him, to be honest with you, but we'll let him come on anyway. So really good rogue. He's a streamer. He creates classic content. Good guy, but we'll get him on in a little bit. But anyway, just so you know what this video is about. So we're looking at the specific differences between classic and TBC, because we know TBC's coming. This is part of a series, so I've already done warrior. So if you want to check warrior out, check it up there. Next, I'm going to do druid, which for anyone who watches this channel knows that I'm going to have the most fun with that, and it'll be the longest video. So if you don't like long videos, don't even watch it, because it will be long, it will be in depth. I would estimate it to be somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour, because it's druid, it's me, yeah, it's my character. It's going to be long. But this one's rogue, so let's just get into it. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out the giveaway, all those things. But yeah, let's see what changes between classic and TBC as a rogue. Right, okay, so we're going to dive into this. I don't need to mention liking and subscribing, so we can get rid of that. You've already done it. So what we're going to be looking at, so we're going to firstly look at talent changes. So talent changes between classic and TBC. We're going to look at what new abilities you get. Then we're going to look at how do both of the above, so how do new talents and new abilities affect your rotation, or the basis of your rotation. What's the PvE and PvP viability of your class and spec. And then just some closing thoughts from me, so just my personal opinions on the class after playing it. Let's go. Right, okay, so let's dive into the talents. I thought this would be the easiest way to do it, so a little bit different to the last video. Before I actually recorded the in-game and the out-of-game, edited it together, it was a bit time consuming, so yep, I thought I'd do it like this instead. Apologies if you hear any noises in the background. Obviously with the corona lockdown, I'm stuck at home with 2 children, so obviously they're very unpredictable. I'll try and edit out any screaming and shouting as best I can, but yep, just thought I would get that out there. Okay, so let's dive into the talents. So we'll start with so assassination. Apologies, I've already put the talents in. I've actually got the sort of best sword spec talents at the moment, which we can talk about later. So we'll just quickly over the tiers. So tier 1 remains the same, literally the same. Tier 2 remains almost the same. We've now got Puncher and Wounds on the second tier, so they've just renamed Improved Backstab to Puncher and Wounds, so it affects Mutilate as well, which we'll get into what Mutilate is shortly, but yeah, that makes sense. So that's now on the second tier here, whereas obviously currently Improved Slice and Dice is there. So if we just quickly flick over into combat, we've now got Improved Slice and Dice on the second tier of combat, but we'll get to that soon. So then, yeah, lethality, so 30% crit chance, so yeah, that's remained exactly the same. Improved Expose Armor has stayed exactly the same. Relentless Strikes, so Relentless Strikes is 1 point in in Classic and TBC, so that's the same. I'll just literally just have a quick glance through and just go over the key changes. Yeah, so we've got Fleet-Footed in TBC. So movement impairing effects reduced by 10% and increases your movement speed as well. Just means you haven't got you can use talents and you haven't got to have movement speed on your boots, which is nice. Quick recovery, like I said in the warrior video, the pretty cool thing about TBC is they gave a lot of classes, or most classes I would say, more survivability, more healing received, or self-heals in some description. So just easy ways to help keep people alive, basically, and maybe even make farming a bit easier. So then we'll move down. Sylphate is exactly the same. The last talent of current classic, so Vigor, 10 energy, is exactly the same. So Deaden Nerves, I am damage, just physical damage taken reduced. I'll be honest with you, it's not great, purely because when you think about raiding, obviously The good thing is I'm giving you this all PvE perspective, whereas Florino, when he says his bit about the new abilities and the end talents and stuff like that, it's just a couple of minutes he's going to go over them, but he's looking at it all from a PvP perspective because he's like some PvP PogChamp or something, or so he tells me. So to me, Deadened Nerves is not great because from a PvE perspective, the majority of the damage that DPS take or should take is magic. You know, it's normally like pulsing AoE or dots or something like that. It's quite rare to be physical damage in my experience. The Fine Weakness is obviously lovely, so after a finishing move you then got a 10-second buff of 10% damage. The only thing it doesn't affect, I don't believe it affects just normal white swings. It is just purely your Sinister Strike and whatever else. Well, you wouldn't be using Sinister Strike, you'd be using Mutilate, but you get what I'm saying. So then finally Mutilate. Good, nice end ability, so nice to sort of, you know, have a new ability to use rather than having, you know, just spamming Sinister Strike or Backstab or whatever, you know. So hits hard. The only downside in TBC really is Assassination isn't that great. It's that there is one viable spec which we'll look at a little bit later on, but overall combat is the go-to raiding spec. There is a tri spec Hemo build which is quite interesting, but as I say, we'll get into all that in a little bit. So let's move on to the combat tree. So combat again is largely unchanged. So top tier is all exactly the same. They've, like we said, you know, you've now got Slice and Dice in the second tier now in TBC. Whereas, because they've put improved Backstab over into Assassination, but yeah, we've covered that already. So you got Blade Twist in, so it gives you Sinister Strike and Gouge, Shiv, Backstab a 10% chance to daze. Nice for PvP, but that's it. Again, I don't particularly care about PvP, if I'm honest, even though you rogues probably do. Vitality, so total stamina and total agility. So again, the agility is nice for the DPS, stamina is nice for the survival, so they're actually a couple of nice talent points to put in. Then Adrenaline Rush, obviously, yep, you've already got that. Nerves of Steel, again, PvP talent, chance to resist stun and fear. Although saying that, I say it's a PvP talent. Fear is quite common in raids, so could be classed as PvE, but definitely not really. You're not going to use 2 points in that over, you know, something that's going to give you damage, obviously. Combat Potency, so it gives you successful off and melee attacks a 20% chance to generate 15 energy. Probably what I was saying earlier with the fact that these end 5 points to get to your last talent for most classes is rubbish. I mean, this is brilliant. You know, absolutely amazing. So, yeah, nice 5 point spend to get to your last ability. So, finishing moves can no longer be dodged. This... Okay, so the damage dealt by your Sinister Strike, Backstab, Shiv and Gouge is increased by 10%. So that's obviously very nice. I'm myself slightly confused over the abilities can no longer be dodged part. And I'll tell you why. You're going to get Expertise soft cap. So essentially that bonus of that last ability is null and void. So it's good for while you're leveling. Maybe good for real low level gear, you know, talking your greens and blues when you finish questing. But unless there's something I'm missing here, and finishers have got a higher chance to be dodged than the boss's standard, you know, 6.25 to 6.5%, then you're really just looking at surprise attacks as giving you a 10% damage buff. But either way, it's still a nice ability, but yeah, I think they could have thought about that a little bit more. Or maybe I need to think about it a little bit more, but I'm sure you'll correct me in the comments if I'm saying something wrong, but I don't believe I am. So let's move on to sub. So sub has remained pretty much the same. So top tier is the same percentages. Just having a quick check at that. On second tier, you've now Dirty Tricks, so increases the range of blind and sap by 2 yards, reduces the energy cost of blind and sap by 25%. So that will be 50% and 4 yards. Rather than Elusiveness, which has moved further down. So again, you've still got these abilities, But yeah, they've just moved around a little bit. Ghosty Strike, Initiative, and Improve Ambush all remain the same. Like I say, they've swapped. So Dirty Tricks was improved Sap, but now Sap doesn't take you out of stealth anyway, so you don't need that anymore, and they've put Dirty Tricks in instead, so that's always nice. And now they've added a lot around the bottom, so let's just go over these. So attacks made while stealthed and for 6 seconds after breaking stealth cause an additional 4% damage, so you got 3 points in that, so that's going to be 12%. Obviously that's very nice. Enveloping Shadows, so increases your chance to avoid AoE abilities by an additional 15% when you put the 3 points into it. That's, yep, could be nice for certain situations, but I mean, this is obviously the daddy, which Florino didn't mention, which I find strange. So Cheat Death, so 33% chance, so basically it's going to be 100% with all the points in it, but when you would take a blow that would kill you, you won't die. You'll have 10% of your maximum health and you take 90% less damage. Perfect for getting away. Absolute beast of a PvP talent. Even PvE can save you some repair bills if you vanish directly after. Sinister Call-In, so again, you boys, you rogue boys, were very lucky with these final points, because even this is very nice. 15% agility and increases damage bonus of your main abilities as a sub rogue. And then Shadow Step, which, Shadow Step from a PvE, let's talk PvE perspective, Shadow Step is awesome. As a rogue, you just want maximum DPS time on the boss. So with Shadow Step, being able to get in and out is nice. The and going from a 2.4.3 perspective, it doesn't require stealth. So when it first was introduced, you could only Shadow Step in stealth, but yeah, that was changed in a patch during TBC. So you want to hope for 2.4.3, because when it required stealth, it was probably a little bit less valuable in both PvP and PvE, to be fair. So that's the talents. I hope that was detailed enough. I'm going to run around and kill some mobs while we look at abilities. Right, so I'm just going to let Florino now just talk to you. Really, he's literally just done a recording of a couple of minutes to share, which is how just his sort of mainly PvP opinions on the new abilities and end talents, just anything that's changed basically from Classic to TBC, and then I'll just add a few comments on each of the abilities from a PvE perspective, and then we'll take a look at rotation.
Hey guys, my name is Florino, aka Florino Gamma on Twitch, and I will talk a little bit about some notable changes for rogues PvP wise coming TBC. Notable abilities to look at for rogue coming TBC are 1. The Godsend, Cloak of Shadows, which is a baseline ability for rogues that allows them to gain immunity from magic and also dispels any magical dots on them on the moment of activation, which is great in Arena to get out of CC, prevent CC, go into defensive, or even use it aggressively. Then, the second ability I want to talk about is Shadow Step, which is basically one of your most important abilities when it comes to crowd control in Arena. Shadow Step is an ability that can be used from 25 yards range to jump behind your opponent instantly to interrupt their cast, or to put them in a stun lock to end the game. Though, just like when talking about Cloak of Shadows, this ability is usable to get out of trouble too. Shadow Stepping their healer to get away from the enemy team's warrior, or Shadow Step the enemy mage to interrupt their cast to put yourself, are both valuable and options that are used frequently in Arena. Let's quickly run through the rest of the abilities. Deadly Throw, a long-ranged weak eviscerate that also slows the target by 70%. Mutilate, a daggers only ability that's from the assassination tree that basically generates 2 combo points and does a decent amount of damage. Shiv is interesting because it uses the damage of your offhand weapon while also applying the poison that is applied to your offhand weapon. This is basically a guarantee to apply a poison to your target, like crippling or mind numbing, to kill a healer in Arena, or edit this out. This basically guarantees like a crippling poison or a mind-numbing poison on the healer to kill the target in the arena. Then there's surprise attack. This is a passive from the combat tree that allows your finishing moves like eviscerate to no longer be dodged and increase damage dealt by backstab, sinister strike, shiv and gouge by 10%. And then there's anesthetic poison, which is a poison that is used to do nature damage, but most importantly remove enrage effects of the target. It has about a 50% chance to proc each hit, and is also usable on shiv. Florino out. Drops the mic.
Okay, thanks for that, Florino. Really nice to have the world best rogue, self-claimed, of course, on the video. Alright, so let's have a look at the abilities. So Florino briefly mentioned Deadly Throw. So Deadly Throw is quite nice. It's not really going to be used much in normal PvE, so raids, dungeons, that sort of thing. Maybe good for if there's a mob running in a dungeon, but that would probably be about it. But it's great for when you're out in the world and you're you're doing some farming, so not much to say about that. Envenom. So Envenom really you're only going to use as assassination. So again, not really much to say. So Shiv is fairly I'm going to say it's fairly useless in PvE. There probably are the odd occasion where you would use it, but just on Florino's piece on the anesthetic poison, he's absolutely right. Anesthetic poison does remove an enrage effect, but unfortunately not in TBC, so that didn't actually come in until Wrath. To begin with, all it is just some damage for no additional threat, so largely useless. The purpose of Shiv really was in Wrath used for dispelling enrages, and then later they removed anesthetic poison and then obviously just put it as part of Shiv to remove enrage. So then we got Cloak of Shadows, which is obviously an absolute godsend, amazing ability. So on a 1 minute cooldown as well, you will use this in raids so much. Even when you look at it and you're like, well, yeah, it sounds like a PvP ability. It is, but it's really useful in raids for reducing the amount of damage you take, gimping mechanics. So when everybody else has to run out, you can pop cloak and stay in and do more damage. All those types of things, which obviously for anyone who's trying to rank or pass, should I say, it's lovely. And then we'll just really briefly go over the last talent. So surprise attacks, not an ability. So I've already said, so mutilate, yeah, it is nice, but assassination is not that great in TBC, unfortunately. It's playable. I mean, the good thing, all the specs apart from subtlety, but the various combat specs, the tri spec hemo build, the flat out hemo build, and assassination, mutilate, they're all close, so you can technically play any of them, but combat's normally between sort of 5 to 8% higher. So if you're happy to take a 5% damage loss but to play a spec that you enjoy, crack on, why not, just do it. But my advice would always be to play the spec that does the most damage, and that is combat swords. This spec I've got here actually, so this is this would carry you all the way through from leveling to Sunwell, which could get a bit boring, to be fair. So then Shadow Step. Do I even need to talk about Shadow Step? I've mentioned it briefly already. The fact that it was fixed. So when I say fixed, it was buffed, if you like. It was originally you could only use it in stealth, and then they changed it to then you can use it out of stealth as well, which is when it became amazing. As I say, even for PvE. If you do, let's say you've cloaked, let's say a boss does some AoE, you've stayed in once with cloak, second time you've run out, and then bang, shadow step you straight back in. Your uptime on the boss is gonna be phenomenal in TBC because the survivability rogues they've got is just insane. So yeah, that's the new abilities that you can expect anyway. Let's get on to the effect these abilities have on your rotation. So I'm only going to cover combat swords for rotation wise, because the vast majority of you will all be playing combat swords anyway, or maybe combat daggers, but that's only going to change your Sinister Strike to backstab, so don't really need to cover that. So you will open with a garrote, then you will use Sinister Strike to build combo points, maintain as close to 100% uptime on Slice and Dice as possible. Your absolute number one priority on combo point usage is to keep Slice and Dice up. You then want to use 5 points, or a minimum of 4 points, but preferably 5-point ruptures on the target at all times. So you want to try and maintain as close to 100% uptime of 5-point Slice and Dice and 5-point rupture, and then with any excess combo points you'll dump those into Eviscerate. But to begin with low levels of gear, it will probably be challenging enough just keeping Slice and Dice up and a 5-point rupture on the boss. That's it. Use your cooldowns, use them at the right time, so use Adrenaline Rush and Blade Flurry when you know you're going to get maximum damage out of them. I don't really want to go into any more detail than that, because this is meant to just be an overview anyway. I'll go in more detail in a proper released rogue guide. Okay, and these are the specs. I'm not going to go into much detail. As I say, the vast majority of you will be using the combat sword spec, which I put on screen earlier anyway. So you've got combat swords, you've got dagger combat, but combat dagger, whatever you want to say it. You got obviously a fist sword, if you had a fist in a mainland, sword in the offhand, which could be very likely. There's some good fist weapons in TBC. This is the tri-spec Hemo build, which I've mentioned. So in all fairness, in the first raids and in low levels of gear, this could be quite good, and you may want a rogue in your guild to be using this, just purely for the Hemo debuff on the boss. So the damage that you'll lose personally, you'll more than make up for in raid damage. But as the gear gets better, your personal loss in damage will probably actually outweigh the raid's gain in damage, especially in smaller raids like Karazhan. So that's something worth considering. And the last spec is a Mutilate build, but as I say, Mutilate is definitely way behind, or even way behind the Tri-Spec Hemo, to be fair, if the Tri-Spec Hemo is played right. So these are the specs to sort of, have a look into, check all the talents out in more detail, but I just wanted to at least put them out on screen for you. So basically, when it comes to stats, it's very difficult for me to, like in the Warrior video, I gave my sort of understanding on stat weights. I can tell you from a spreadsheet what your stat weights will be sort of when you're in sort of average gear, so heroic, non-heroic 5-man stuff. You're going to want your expertise soft cap to 6.5% and your 9% hit cap. You're going to then be, obviously, agility is then the weighted as the next best stat, but you're going to naturally be getting agility on your gear anyway. Then haste, then crit, then strength, which, obviously you're not going to really want much strength, and then armor pen. But again, like armor pen gets more valuable as the other stats are higher, as you've got more of them. So that's the basics of what you're going to be doing to begin with. So if you stick to these stat weights, you'll be alright, and then I would suggest when you actually get in raids, you start simming your character. There's going to be plenty of resources to find out what's going to be the best stats for you as your gear changes. So PvP and PvE viability, obviously, if you haven't gathered it by this video so far, yes, absolutely viable. They're fantastic. They're strong in PvE, great DPS. Guilds will want you absolutely if you can play your class, which I'm going to put more in-depth class guides out. So if you can't play your class, hopefully you'll learn it from me before TBC comes. Just want to get these overview videos out first, then I'm going to be putting effort into making the best sort of full in-depth deep dive class guides. They probably will be long, but like you've seen from my other videos, I ramble on a bit, but I also go into as much detail as I can. So that's all I want to say about viability. Yes, absolutely viable, amazingly fun, and you could get yourself Warglades of Azzinoth, which I'll put on screen now. It's worth playing a rogue just to try and get your hands on those bad boys, because they look sick, and they are sick. So good luck. And then just my closing thoughts. I'll be absolutely honest, I didn't expect to have as much fun on a rogue as I have. I never played a rogue in TBC, not in end game. I did have one at 70, but I think I pretty much dinged and used it for farming or for just another set of professions. I don't remember even doing Karazhan on it. But if I wasn't so obviously set on going druid, I think at this point rogue would definitely be a contender for me. And who knows, I've always played a druid as a main, so it would almost feel dirty to play anything other than a druid as my main, but I could be possibly swayed by rogues. So we'll see. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some of it useful. Thank you again, Florino, for giving us a hand. Be sure to check out Florino's Twitch channel. Follow him on Twitch. I'll put that on the screen now. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. And the next one, as I said, is going to be Druid. So peace out.